So again, the tips that I'm going to share have helped me to alleviate both the anxiety leading up to the winter months and then the depression that can come with the winter months, from mild to severe. Welcome to Ebbs and Flows with Erin. In this show, we're getting real about navigating the ups and downs of life together. I'm your host, Erin, and we're ditching the pressure to have it all figured out along the way because honestly, nobody does. We'll explore all things healing, growing, creating, and connecting. And if you deal with anxiety, depression, being a highly sensitive person, or just feeling overwhelmed by life sometimes, I see you, and this show is for you. My intention with these conversations is simple: to leave you feeling empowered, validated, and most importantly, reminded that you are never alone, no matter where you're at on your own journey. Learning that we all have the power to heal genuinely changed my life. And the best part, healing does not have to be complicated. The smallest changes really can make the biggest impact, and it can be joyful, fulfilling, and something that we do together. So join me in getting real about what it means to heal. Thank you for being here, and now let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to Ebbs and Flows with Erin, or welcome back to Ebbs and Flows with Erin. I am really happy to be here today recording. I actually have not been in the studio for 3 weeks, maybe almost a month, as if you've listened to our last episode with Summer from Balia, we recorded that in Mexico. I was in Mexico for a week celebrating one of my best friend's weddings, and I pre-recorded the 2 episodes before that, before leaving to Mexico. So I am happy to be back in the studio. And I am really happy to have recorded my first podcast outside of the studio. I now have the equipment to take Ebbs and Flows on the road, and to have had my first guest, who also happened to be one of my best friends, on the podcast. I hope that you enjoyed that conversation. I have been getting some good feedback from it, and I'm really appreciative of anyone who chose to listen, and I know Summer feels the same. Again, don't forget to shop Balia and get yourself a bottle of their genuinely amazing oil and use our special Ebbs and Flows discount code, which you can find in the show notes of that episode, whether you're listening or watching on YouTube. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit in my head about the episode when I put it out because, as I said, it was my first time using that equipment and recording outside of the studio, recording with another person, but I am really proud of the final product, and I posted some funny behind the scenes bloopers of what it was really like to record after a week in Mexico with this new equipment for the first time, and that is on our Instagram. So check that out if you would like a little behind the scenes, because a little bit of editing can go a long way. But anyways, let's get into today's episode. I want to talk about SAD season, seasonal affective disorder, seasonal depression. Maybe it's just for you the winter blues. There is a difference from winter blues and seasonal affective disorder or seasonal depression, but these tips will help to prevent all of the above. As someone who historically, from the beginning of time, I have hated winter with a passion. I live in Alberta, Canada. The winters are cold and dark and long. And it's been in these last few years of winters that when I really dove into my genuine holistic healing journey with the goal of doing whatever I could to better my overall health and wellness, my daily lived experience, mental health, all the things, I decided, okay, obviously wallowing in my hatred of winter is not helping me at all. It's not helping my mental state. So let's see what happens if I try and lean into what comes with this winter season. And so these are the tips that I want to share today because they have worked for me, again, as someone who it is not natural for me to enjoy winter. I have never enjoyed winter. I, growing up, remember would always say, I can't wait to grow up and I'm leaving this place. Why do we live here? I hate winter, blah, blah, blah. And well, I'm just about 30 years old and I'm still here. And I can't say that winter is my favorite season. It still is not my favorite, but by incorporating some of these things that I'm going to talk about today, I have been able to get through winters over the last few years without the deep depression that it came with for so long. And It's not always easy when you live in a place where you barely see the sun and it's cold and it's dark, but it is possible, and there are really simple ways to try and help yourself get through this season, and we're going to talk about those today. When you look into seasonal affective disorder or seasonal depression, in my research for doing this episode and my research when I was looking for ways to help myself in the past, a lot of the advice is the same. And one of the common pieces of advice that I've found is to take antidepressant medication. And if you've listened to my Effexor series or any of our past episodes here, you will know my experience with antidepressants and how I feel about those, and that I would suggest exploring all of your options before committing to an antidepressant medication. Again, if medication works for you, there's definitely a time and a place for it, and everyone's journey is different. But in my experience, I wish that I would have tried many more things before committing to Effexor, the antidepressant medication. You can hear all about that, what I suggest you consider before taking antidepressants, pros and cons of being on Effexor in my experience, and tapering off of medication, and the way that I found to do so without such debilitating withdrawals in our 3-part Effexor series that started this podcast off. But anyways, I want to share some more holistic tips and tools today, aside from the traditional advice of go on an antidepressant, use light therapy, which light therapy isn't going to hurt to try. And I have found success in utilizing that as well in the past. And the other advice was to take vitamin D. And that is one of my tips as well, taking vitamin D, especially in liquid form, and honestly taking more than is suggested as the dosage on the bottle or the packaging. I'm not a doctor or a naturopath, but in my experience and from what's been suggested to me in the past was to take actually a higher daily dosage of what even the packaging says of liquid vitamin D in the winter season, because it is so dark and we get so little sunlight. That is what was suggested to me, and I've been doing it ever since, and I believe it's helping. Anyways, let's get into, first of all, what is seasonal affective disorder or seasonal depression? Well, this has been linked to changes in our brain during the darker months, prompted by shorter daylight hours and less sunlight. As the seasons change, people experience a shift in their internal biological clock, also known as your circadian rhythm, which there is a lot more talk about the importance of working with our circadian rhythm in recent times, especially as I've talked about him before, Dr. Andrew Huberman. If you don't listen to the Huberman Lab or follow him on social media, I highly suggest you do if you're interested in science or tools to better yourself and your overall health and wellness. He makes science very accessible to everyday humans, and I think that is amazing. He talks a lot about ways to work with your circadian rhythm and how that's going to help your mental health, your physical health, your sleep, all the things. But that essentially is what researchers find is the link to seasonal affective disorder, because studies also find that people who experience this in the winter especially experience lower levels of serotonin in their brains, which is a chemical that helps to regulate our mood. And this research shows that sunlight can affect the levels of serotonin in our brains, so naturally getting less sunlight can lead to lower serotonin levels. And as we've already talked about vitamin D, research also shows that vitamin D is believed to promote serotonin activity. So the lack of vitamin D from the shorter hours of sunlight can exacerbate these symptoms of SAD and lower serotonin levels in people who experience it. The Canadian Mental Health Association says that 2 to 3% of Canadian adults report experiencing SAD in their lifetime. Another 15% of people will report that they experience a mild form of SAD, so it might not impact their ability to live their day-to-day life, but they feel a slight depression, quote unquote. And people with seasonal affective disorder make to 10% of all depression cases. And this is kind of interesting. Again, the Canadian Mental Health Association reports that adults are at a higher risk for experiencing SAD than children, and women may be more likely to experience SAD, up to 9 times more likely than men to experience SAD. Okay, what are common symptoms of SAD? Things that you might experience if you have seasonal affective disorder or seasonal depression. There is fatigue, even if you're getting too much sleep. There can be weight gain due to increased cravings of sugar and carbohydrates. And SAD symptoms can mirror depression symptoms. The key here to point out about SAD is that SAD is diagnosed when your depression seems to kick in at the same time every year and last for the same amount of time every year. So if you're someone who has depression in general, you might be wondering, well, what's the difference? Well, if you find that you seem to slip into depression around the same time every year and come out of it around the same time every year, you may be diagnosed with SAD. SAD symptoms can vary from mild to severe, and again, mirror symptoms of depressive disorder. Things like feeling sad or depressed or low or unmotivated, loss of interest in things that usually bring you pleasure or engaging in activities that you usually enjoy, changes in your appetite, like having, again, more cravings for food that is not great for you, changes in sleep, so you're usually sleeping more or wanting to sleep more, a general loss of energy no matter how much you're sleeping, feeling worthless or guilty, and difficulty thinking, concentrating, or making decisions. So pretty much, if you know what it feels like to have the winter blues or a more extreme version of seasonal depression or seasonal affective disorder. You start to lose energy, lose motivation, lose interest in things. You want to sleep more, and you just feel generally down. And in my experience as well, as you're approaching these months where you know that this is typically your experience, you can start to feel almost anxiety leading up to it, feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't want to feel that way again, but I know that it's coming. So again, the tips that I'm going to share have helped me to alleviate both the anxiety leading up to the winter months and then the depression that can come with the winter months, from mild to severe. And I'll be honest, when I got home from Cancun last week, I believe it was, I really struggled. For about 5 days, I felt the extreme post-vacation blues, I would like to call it, but I went from the beach, sun, ocean, hot weather to there was like a snowstorm the day that we landed, freezing cold, dark, snowy, and I really struggled for the first few days, especially the first 2 days, and I knew what was happening, but I still was like, what is wrong with me? I could not get enough sleep. I slept so much. I was randomly crying at random times, whether I was at home or at work or wherever. I felt like I was living in a simulation. I felt sad. I had no energy, no interest in picking back up into life since getting home. But I tried to give myself some grace and some self-compassion and remind myself I just came off of this high of being on this trip with a lot of my friends, celebrating a friend's wedding in this hot climate that I love, and then coming home to such an extreme difference in temperature and then having to enter back into routine in a whole new environment. I knew what was happening and I knew that I had the tools to get out of it, but it was a struggle at first. And I'm just glad that I was able to get out of it the way that I did because, yeah, in past winters, that sort of feeling lasted for a long time. And I know that that is common for people who live in this sort of climate. So let's get into some holistic tips and tools to fight sad season, fight the winter blues, fight seasonal depression, and allow us to move through this winter season experiencing more ease and joy. And one tip that I want to start off with here that I think can be one of the biggest things to make a quick switch mentally and then, of course, physically, emotionally, is to try and lean into the change of season and what comes with that. And this is not easy for me to say, again, as someone who traditionally hates winter. But I can tell you over the last few winters of trying to do this and to lean into and focus on the good and the positive that comes with it and what winter season calls us to do, which is to slow down, move into introspection, looking inward, deeper connection, getting cozy and taking care of ourselves. So even just making that mental switch from focusing on everything that goes away with the winter season, that changes from going from summer and fall to winter that you can no longer do anymore, or the things that you wish you could be doing in the winter, but focusing on what the season is calling for us to focus on, which is really, in simple terms, ourselves. and taking care of ourselves and doing almost an internal audit of our internal experience and what we want from our lives and the things we want to work on, the things that we are wanting to manifest or create in our life, the things that we want to change or try. And something that can help with that is one of my tips, is to journal. To journal daily if you can make the habit of it. I suggest doing so. Journaling. There is literally science behind the benefits of journaling. It can strengthen your immune system. It helps to alleviate stress, anxiety, depression. It helps to work through past traumas and old stored emotions and stressors. It helps you to have a clear direction for what you want for your life. It helps you to manifest the things that you want to bring into your life. There are so many reasons to journal, and there is a lot of talk out there and research out there that you can look into to learn more about the science behind journaling. I know I've mentioned before that throughout my entire life, I've always written. I've always kept a journal, and I was not always consistent. I will be honest, I don't think I was ever consistent with it. I would do it daily for a few weeks or a few months, and then not write for a few weeks or a few months, and up and down, up and down. And it's been in, again, these last few years that I have made a consistent writing routine. And I think, or I know, that is directly linked to the positive changes that I have seen and created in my life. And I think it's important to note that there are a lot of journaling prompts and practices and structures that you can follow, but you also do not have to. One of my favorite ways to journal is to simply open up my notebook and just write for a few pages. Write without thinking, just write whatever is coming out and just dump. I call it a brain dump. Just brain dump onto the pages, and that in itself is going to help with your mood, your mental state. It's clearing out the clutter in your brain and helping you to process your feelings and emotions. So it doesn't have to be too complicated, especially if you're just starting to create this habit. You don't want to make it too complicated for yourself. So just simply set the intention to write. Just open up the notebook and start writing. But then what I find after doing a brain dump is I like to write out some affirmations, whatever I need in that moment or in that day, and then do some future self journaling. So whether those are affirmations set in the future, writing them as if I already have what I'm desiring or what I want to create or the goals I have, or writing as if I'm living the reality I want to live, my dream life, as my highest self, whatever you want to call it, or just literally writing out a page like a script as if I'm already living that reality. Those two things, the brain dump and the affirmations and future self journaling, are my everyday or most common journaling practices. And then there's the full moon and new moon journaling practices that I like to do. For new moon, I'm focusing on my intentions to create things and what I want to bring into my life, or manifesting if you want to call it. And then for full moons, I'm journaling about what I am releasing. Sometimes I create different prompts depending on what astrological sign the moon is in. So those are my favorite journaling practices. Again, there are so many different journaling practices that you can use depending on what it is you're looking for to support yourself in. But the most important thing here is to not put too much pressure on it and not make it too complicated. Again, especially if you're just starting, just put a pen to paper and write. You can also do something called a rage page, where if you're experiencing really heightened emotions, just write whatever you want to write out. If you need to get angry at someone, at something, write out a rage page and then rip it up, burn it, throw it out. So for all these tips, the goal is to shift from wishing away winter, wishing that it was different, wishing you were experiencing it, shifting that to acceptance, accepting that it is happening, and then leaning into what the season does bring and the opportunities that it does bring to better yourself and to find some joy and ease in the season. And another way that we can do this, another tip I have, is to explore a hobby or many hobbies, whether it's something that you have enjoyed in the past or it's something new. Having hobbies is so important. It is so healing because this typically comes with creative expression. Expressing yourself creatively in any form of creative way. Often when you hear about creativity or being a creative, you think you have to be an artist. And if we really want to get into it, we are all artists. I'm currently reading The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin, and I think I want to do a podcast episode dissecting his book or lessons learned from his book, because there's so many amazing gems in there. But he really drives the message that we are all creators, and it is simply necessary for your health and wellness and to enjoy your lived experience. You need to be able to express your creativity. And I know that I've found this to be true with myself. I, growing up, was a creative person. I had creative outlets. I had hobbies all over the place. And then coming into my early 20s, my 20s, being in college, dealing with the stressors of life and that brings, I completely lost my creative side and having any fun hobbies, creative hobbies. And it's been, again, in the past recent years when I dove into this holistic healing journey. And I was learning about the fact that you need to be able to express yourself. And a lot of the time, your hobby will allow you to enter a meditative state, a flow state, which can often be compared to being in a meditative state. And research has shown that creative expression helps to alleviate anxiety, depression, tension, and stress. It also helps you process feelings and emotions, old situations that are stored in your body. The body keeps a score. And the average person has about 60,000 thoughts a day. So engaging in a creative activity, a creative hobby, is directing your brain to focus on one thing and to quiet your mind. This releases dopamine, which is a natural antidepressant. There is no reason not to have a hobby. But yeah, a few years ago, I remember I was on the way home from working in the office and I stopped at Michael's. If you live, I think it's just in Canada, but this is a craft store. And I picked up a bunch of painting paper, a bunch of paints, paint brushes, and I was like, I'm painting. This is how I'm re-entering my creative side. And ever since that, I have been painting, and I really wanted to make it something that I focused on for passion and enjoyment rather than reaching perfection, because I can often, as we've talked about in our past The Truth About Perfectionism and Why Self-Compassion is the Answer episode, if you want to listen to that, if you haven't yet, I share a lot of research behind perfectionism and how to help yourself break out of it, but I can get caught up in feeling like the things that I'm doing, I need to be doing in order to perfect them or be an expert at them or be a pro at them or get really good at them. And I wanted to make painting something that I was doing just for fun and just to feel good and creative. And that has stuck with me now for the past few years. And that is my favorite creative outlet, to focus my mind on something, turn off all the noise and the outside thoughts. And I know for me, it has made a difference in my mental health. So things like drawing, painting, writing, again, writing is creative expression, so back to the journaling, playing music, singing, dancing, we're going to get into dancing too, talking, even I guess, creating this podcast is a creative act, designing, if you like to design things in your house or rearrange furniture or plan a redesign of a room, making food, cooking, baking, really anything. There's so many ways to express your creativity. Maybe you're taking up crochet, you're taking up knitting, you're taking up, I don't know, pottery making. There are so many options, but I encourage you to lean into one during the winter months, because we just naturally have a lot more time to focus on our own hobbies. I also, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see my guitar in the background. And again, that was a few years ago that when I was growing up, I played guitar, I played piano, and then that too completely left my world for years. And a few years ago, I went and bought a guitar, and I am no pro. I am very not even close to a great guitar player at all, but I have just really enjoyed jumping on the guitar and playing around on it. It's another thing that immediately calms my mind, focuses my mind on the music, and relaxes me, relieves tension and stress. I bought a MIDI board to learn how to produce and make music a few years ago. I really need to spend more time on that. But that, again, is something that allows me to enter that state. And it helps you to push through perfectionism if that's something that you experience or deal with, feeling like you need to either monetize everything, become a pro at everything, perfect everything. Try something new and try it with the intention of enjoyment and passion and purpose for yourself rather than to be either praised for it or rather than to be an expert or a pro or to prove anything. Just make it for your pure enjoyment. That has been extremely helpful for me in my healing journey, especially in these winter months. Give yourself something to do that is not just scrolling social media or watching Netflix, both of which you can still do, but have something else that you're able to look to fill your time when you're home in these cold, dark months. And on that note, outside of a hobby, learning something new. That's another tip I have. Let yourself learn something new. Especially with the online world now, there are so many options you don't even have to pay for. Free options, free courses, free video tutorials, free platforms to learn new things. Just for, again, your own enjoyment. You don't necessarily have to do anything with it, but learning new things. I know I am a lifelong learner. I am meant and I feel called to always be learning new things, whether I'm going to use them professionally or just for my own enjoyment. I really enjoy learning about and deep diving into things. If you know anything about human design, I am a generator 5-1 profile and a 5-1 profile generator. One thing about us is that we will do a deep dive and we love to learn the why behind everything and the information behind everything. And learning that is literally in my design was really empowering because I've always felt that way in my life, but I do want to share more about human design in a future episode because everyone that I share it with feels validated in the things they learn about themselves as well. Anyways, side note, but learning something new, whether or not you're going to use that in your professional life, your personal life, you're going to share it with the world or just know it for yourself. Again, this gives you something to focus on and enjoy doing when you're at home in these cold months. Okay, we talked about in creative expression, hobbies, dance. And this is something that I think is one of the most simple and effective things you can do to fight off sad season. But just in general, dance is so powerful. There's research behind what happens in your brain when you dance, and trauma, old emotions, tension, stress is stored in your hips. So moving your hips, shaking your booty, moving your body at any time of year is going to be extremely healing, and especially during the winter season. It is nearly impossible to feel depressed while dancing, and if you are in a depression and you're dancing, it's going to help lift you out of that mood, out of that slump. It doesn't matter if you feel like you look like a fool, if you say, I can't dance, no one has to be around. Put on some music. There's also a lot of research about the benefits of simply listening to music. So you're doing two things at once, dancing, listening to music. Put on some music, get your body moving. It doesn't matter what it looks like, just move it to the music. This is going to help release endorphins and boost your dopamine and serotonin. I promise you. Just try it. I started doing this and taking dance breaks when I started working from home in COVID, and I was in a deep depression. Not just a seasonal affective disorder depression, a general depression at this time in life. And again, once I started embarking on this deeper holistic journey to better myself, I was learning about the power of dance, and I was at a point where it's like, well, what do I have to lose? I just want to feel better. And I was working from home, and some days literally not moving from the same room all day long. And I started getting up and having dance breaks. And I love my dance breaks now. I can tell you it is an instant mood booster. So just give it a try. Again, no one has to know, no one has to see. It doesn't matter what it looks like, just try it. And you can incorporate this while you're making your breakfast, making your lunch, making your dinner, while you're getting ready for the day, while you're ungetting ready for the day, while you're cleaning. And I promise you, it sounds so simple, but it is so effective. And on that note, mindful movement. So a lot of the time during these seasons, we can start to feel way less motivated to move our bodies. If you're someone who goes to the gym, you're way less motivated to go outside and drive to the gym. If you're someone who enjoys your outdoor walks, you're way less motivated to get outside and go walking, especially if the hours you have available to walk are now dark. I know I really miss my walks outside, and I still will walk outside when I'm able to walk during the day, because part of the reason I like to walk outside is to get the sunlight. So some days, if you're someone who works during the daylight hours, you're going to work in the dark, coming home in the dark, so you don't really have that option. But the days that I work from home and I'm able to get outside in the day and it's not absolutely freezing, I will walk outside. But on the days that that's not happening, home workouts. There are now so many options to do weightlifting workouts, HIIT workouts, Pilates workouts, yoga workouts, so many different kinds of workouts in your home. And all you need is a mat, a yoga mat, and your laptop or your TV, your phone. I suggest making a cozy environment for it. So you can even light candles during it. You can put on some mood lighting. You can choose a playlist that makes you feel good. You can even put on a show. You can watch TV while you're doing it. Any way to get you still moving your body, because we know, we've been told a million times, we've heard a million times, moving your body is going to be so positive for your mental health, not only your physical, and it doesn't have to be a strenuous workout. You just want to move your body. Go on YouTube, find a free video to follow. There are so many options. And not beating yourself up if your movement or workout routine looks different during this season than it does during the summer or the other seasons. Being flexible with what that's going to look like, and then just being proud of yourself for moving your body however you're doing so. Okay, so a lot of this is focused on ourselves. Introspection, going inward, connecting with ourselves, taking care of ourselves, getting curious with ourselves. But something I've found, it is so important to still connect with others during this season. And you have to be more intentional about it. But the beautiful part is that you can spend more quality, deeper connection time with the people in your life. You're just going to have to make sure that you are making the effort to spend that time. And maybe it is a FaceTime or phone calls, but especially if you can, getting in person with your loved ones still. Maybe you plan a craft night or a movie night or a dinner night or a dinner party, or you're just hanging out in your sweatsuits, eating snacks on the couch. You want to make sure you're still spending time with loved ones, friends. I know for myself, it is so easy to fall into how easy it is to not leave your house during the cold, dark months. But we need connection. As human beings, we literally require connection. I've talked about in some episode here about learning with my therapist. It's not just a preference. We literally need connection. This world has started to make us feel or put out the message that we should be able to be self-sufficient and do everything on our own, but we are not meant to. We need to connect. We need to laugh. We need to cry. We need to connect. And so another note is to not hide how you're feeling. Open up with your loved ones and your friends. Be vulnerable about the fact that you do struggle with experiencing depression or winter blues, lower motivation to do things or to leave the house during this season. And oftentimes you'll find that others can relate to you, and then you can kind of work together to help each other out and make sure that you are making the intention to connect with each other. Maybe you have a buddy where you're making sure that you're reaching out and checking in on each other about engaging in your hobbies, or what this new thing is that you're learning about, or that you're still engaging in your movement, and being encouraging to each other without being overbearing or shaming yourselves or others for whether or not you're in the slump or not. And you can be aware with each other that maybe you do feel less inclined to leave the house and hang out with people, connect and do something, but you're going to make the intention to make sure that you're still doing so that you're still seeing people, you're still leaving the house, you're still connecting with others, because it is so important. Like I said, it's so easy to fall into the hole of not wanting to leave your house and feeling like you don't have to because everyone else is kind of feeling the same way. Okay, this tip my therapist gave me and told me that she utilizes it herself, and ever since it's been really helpful for me in general, but also when it comes to the winter sadness and seasonal affective disorder, and that is to plan your life in seasons. So plan out your intentions for what you want to be doing, creating, feeling during each different season. So winter, summer, spring, fall, because it's going to naturally look different in each season. But if you can plan what you envision for each season, moving in accordance to what that season is calling for and what you have more opportunity to do, create, bring into your life during each season, it's going to prevent you from feeling overwhelmed or let down or disappointed with yourself or just the season you're in when it comes. Because instead of coming up to winter and being like, oh, I don't want it to happen. Like, I've been loving this routine that I'm on and I have less opportunity to do this or create this or feel this way that I've been feeling, blah, blah, blah. You move into the season with an idea already that you've already worked on creating and setting in your mind of what you're going to shift into in this season. I hope this makes sense. I hope I wasn't just rambling there. I hope that makes sense because it's been really helpful for me. Basically, this helps so that when each change of season comes, you're not so thrown off by the change and what it's bringing. You already have an idea of what you want and what you are going to be doing during this season to support yourself. Okay, we are almost done here, but another tip I want to give is to not stop investing in yourself and taking care of yourself. So again, it can feel so easy to slip into a hole of not wanting to leave the house, not wanting to take care of yourself or do the things that you do to support yourself as much as you would in a season where you are being more social or you have a busier schedule. But if you're someone who you go to therapy, you get massages, you get acupuncture, you get your hair done, you get your nails done, you have these self-care habits, appointments, rituals, things that support yourself and make you feel good about yourself, I encourage you to not give those up in the winter months. Maybe you're not seeing as many people. Maybe you don't feel like you have as much going on that you need to talk through in therapy or whatever it may be. You just don't feel like leaving the house as much. If that's what's required in the ways that you support yourself and invest in yourself, I encourage you to not stop investing in yourself. And in general, I want to have an episode where I talk more about the power of investing in yourself because this has been a huge healing lesson for me and growth lesson for me is the importance of investing in yourself, especially if you're someone who maybe traditionally your instinct is to live from a lack or scarcity mindset, or you worry about money, anything like that. You can be easily convinced that you don't need to take care of yourself or invest in yourself, but I promise you, I have so much evidence of that being opposite from the truth. The more you invest in yourself, the more you invest in your overall health and wellness and well-being and what makes you feel good on the inside and the outside, the more that is reciprocated to you by the universe and in your life inwardly and outwardly. We need an episode on that and I will get there, but don't stop taking care of yourself and investing in you. Okay, I kind of want to end here for these tips. I don't want to overload with a bunch of different information. I know that these have been the main things that have made a difference for me in getting through these winter months without falling into a depression or letting the winter blues get the best of me. And of course, like everything else that we talk about here, it ebbs and flows. And there will be times when you have lower energy or you are feeling down or you're feeling less motivated, and that's okay. Give yourself grace and compassion when that does come up. But having tools and awareness and knowledge to be able to pull yourself out of it and get back to a state of ease and joy and fulfillment, that's what's important. You're never alone in how you're feeling. If you're struggling, that's okay. Just know that there is so much you can do for yourself without having to reach for a medication. Like so much of the information behind seasonal affective disorder says. It's like the number one advice that I was seeing online: take an antidepressant. We know how I feel about that. And again, not saying no one should ever be on antidepressants. There's a time and a place, and if it works for you, it works for you, and that's great. Just spreading what I have found to be more effective in bettering my mental health, physical health, emotional health, spiritual health, all of the things. And all of this that I've shared is all a part of nervous system regulation. All of these things play a part in regulating your nervous system and allowing you to naturally and easily shift into the parasympathetic rest and digest mode that we need to be in order to heal and calm and relax. And we have a whole episode on nervous system regulation, why it matters, and tools and tips to do so. You can listen to that if you have not yet. But really, nervous system regulation is probably going to come up in almost every episode because a lot of the things we're doing here to support our health and wellness holistically all comes back to the nervous system, because we cannot create lasting change or healing without addressing our nervous system, our bodies, our energy. And these winter months that call us to slow down and go inward and take care of ourselves are a great time to work with our nervous system. The more that we consciously and actively work with our nervous system, the more that we are going to be naturally able to shift in and out of the fight or flight and into rest and digest more easily and naturally throughout our day to day. And all of these things play a part in that. So this winter, allow yourself to play, allow yourself to have fun, to feel joy, to get cozy, to take care of yourself, to ask yourself what you want from this season, what you want from life, what do you want to create, what do you want to do, what do you want to focus on, what are your dreams, what are your goals, what do you want to do just purely because you want to have a silly, goofy, fun time. It can be so easy, especially in this season, to fall into just laying on the couch, laying in bed, scrolling social media, watching Netflix, wallowing in the sadness of being cold and dark outside. But all of these things are going to help you avoid falling into a season of depression, where it can really be a season of expansion and growth and healing, creating and connecting. So I hope this all made sense. I hope you can take something from this episode. If you'd like any more clarity or details on anything I shared here, send me a DM on Instagram at ebbsandflows222. Send me an email at erinebbsandflows@gmail.com. Leave me a comment on YouTube. All of this will be in the show notes. I am sending a lot of love and healing and gratitude. I hope that you stay warm and safe this week, and I can't wait to talk to you guys next week. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Big kissies for Mom. Big kisses for Mom. Oh, okay.